Oh. Oh. Have you ever seen one of those videos where a bear is just coming out of hibernation? Slow, stiff, cautious. Does that feel familiar to you once the winter season is over, travel season is over, and the warm weather is starting to come back? Yeah, honestly, same. But it doesn't have to be a guarantee. And so this episode here is going to give you the blueprint on how to adjust your training program during the winter months. So that way you enter spring like a gazelle with just that bounce in your step, ready to rock and roll and hit those PRs again. All right, y'all. Winter just changed the rules up on us, and it sucks. I get it. We were absolutely killing it during summer, during fall, where we were hitting PRs, we were making progress. We were so dialed into our routine. Like we knew that playbook from start to finish. And so I get why you would question, why do we need to change things up? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Well, if the rules have changed, that means the game has changed. And if we're looking to make long-term progress, then we need to figure out how to play this game for longer and longer on a more consistent and sustainable basis. So shouldn't we change along with it? So what's going on during winter? Well, one, it's obviously getting colder. Two, darkness is here, daylight is shrinking. Three, flights maybe start to be stacking up due to business travel, business meetings, holidays, things like that. Holiday food also may be stacking up a little bit too much. And then I'm not sure if you noticed, but the gym just feels, 3 to 5 degrees colder than it normally does, which makes it harder to kind of get going. And so those are the inevitables. But what's optional is losing progress based off how you respond to those. And so I understand, where you could be coming from, where if you have a morning workout, it's so easy to just stay in the comfort zone, bundled underneath the covers, and just rationalize. I'm going to skip the morning workout today. I'm going to sleep in a little bit longer, and don't worry, I'm going to hit this later on in the day. But then the day gets away from you and you don't. Or when you get off work, it's already dark, pitch dark. So it's less enticing, less motivating to actually go for a walk, get some steps in, and things like that. Or, when the flights start stacking up, we just get thrown out of our routine and it's a little bit harder to kind of get back into the groove. Or with the holidays, right? Instead of consolidating the food that we eat to just that day, sometimes we let it linger for a day or a week. Or for some people, maybe their eating habits have changed for an entire month after that holiday. And so if we look at those inevitables in isolation, one at a time, they're nothing crazy. We can get through any one of those. But if we allow them all to stack up at the same time and we're just a passenger where we're just along for the ride, then that's what's creating start-stop cycles. And so start-stop cycles are probably the number one killer of progress. And so I'm not sure if you've gone through that or if you know a friend that have gone through that, but if any one of those inevitables resonates with you, like drop a comment below, because I promise you, you are not alone. And so when we adjust our training in the winter, we're not lowering the standards. We're recalibrating the tactics in how to create more sustainability. So let's talk about how winter affects our physiology, how to make the warm-ups more effective and also efficient with your time, how to tweak the program, the meat and potatoes of the workout so that, we could swap like time costly volume for higher ROI work. And then also I'm going to give you a toolkit of go-to KPIs that you can use as program audits to ensure that you're still maintaining your progress. Okay, how do colder temperatures affect our physiology? Well, I'm going to start with a subjective point of view here, and I'm going to bring back that analogy of the bear coming out of hibernation. So I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but I definitely have during winter months where my normal pace, like that pep in my step, is just a little bit slower, and my joints feel a little bit stiffer. And so it just takes me a little bit longer to get going. And so what is going on inside of our bodies that is leading to that? So one, our muscles are going to be a little bit less elastic. So muscle elasticity. So you can think of colder equals stiffer. And so lower temperatures are going to reduce that elasticity, which is basically just the muscle's ability to freely stretch and then come back to resting length. And so if you go straight into your heavy compound lifts with an improper warm up or, something like that, it just slightly increases your risk of strain. during those high lifts with that same range of motion. So the second one is going to be joint viscosity. When you get into colder temperatures, it's going to thicken up that synovial fluid. And so the joints are just going to feel a little bit more sticky. And so you may have noticed that during those early sets in the compound lifts where maybe things weren't gliding as smoothly as they normally do. And so that's also why, a proper warm up is going to be important, is just to kind of get that stickiness out of the way. And so you're ready to go when the compound lifts come. And the third one is going to be, blood flow. And so colder temperatures actually affect, peripheral vasoconstriction. And so what vasoconstriction is it's just the constriction of vessels. And so if the peripherals are, our arms, our legs, things like that. And why the body does this is because it's a self-preservation technique. And so it wants to preserve our core and organ temperature because those are, the difference between life and death, basically. And so that's why it takes a little bit longer for the peripheral joints and muscles to get warmed up. And the last one is going to be the cold affects our nervous system response. So that means reaction time, power, and coordination too. And so that means intermuscular and intramuscular coordination is affected. And so very, very important that, we actually do a little bit of training the nervous system during the warm up to kind of get that going, get that engine fired up. And so to kind of simplify all this into one analogy, we could think of our bodies as engine oil. So the cold is going to thicken up that engine oil. And when we start that car, do you really think that you're able to just punch the gas right away? Or do you have to just allow time for it to warm up before redlining it? So same exact concept there. So sticking with the analogy of our bodies are like engine oil, where it just takes a little bit longer to kind of get going. So we're going to talk about how to upgrade your warm-ups to where they are still just as effective in getting you ready to rock and roll by set number one of your strength work, but it is also efficient with your time to where you're not having to spend 30 minutes just to warm up. And so in order to create the warm-ups with pure effectiveness, pure efficiency, I'm going to set a time limit, 10 minutes here, start to finish. First 5 minutes, spend it on a cardio machine. And so those cardio machines can include either a rower, a fan bike, a elliptical, a Versa climber, or even a treadmill incline walk. The reason I chose those is because they get your whole body moving. They get the torso rotating, the hips rotating, and most importantly, they elevate your heart rate, which is going to help disperse the blood flow. And so that's going to be the first 5 minutes. Second 3 minutes, so that would be 8 total here. The second 3 minutes, you're going to pick 2 exercises, 2 full body dynamic mobility exercises. And the principle from this is that each one should incorporate knee flexion, hip, and spinal rotation. Those are going to be the 3 most important aspects to get your entire body warm. So a couple of those are going to be a med ball lateral lunge, and then just adding a rotation into it. So you're holding the med ball right here. As you lunge to the side, which is going to engage that outer hip and the knee too, you're just rotating over that leg. So you do incorporate a little bit of thoracic rotation there. Or it could mean a light rotational med ball slam. So in the warm-up specifically, this one's not for power. It's more so for just stretching the lats, stretching the shoulders, stretching the chest. But you also get some knee, hip, and ankle flexion from it. So it's great. And then you could also, if you don't have a med ball, that's okay. Just go through some bear crawl variations, like either a forward, backward bear crawl or a lateral one. And so that's going to increase the entire core temperature because you're having to utilize your entire body just to stay upright. The last one that I personally love is what's called a rhythmic drop squat. And basically what this is, especially if you have squats planned for the day, this is going to be great to just loosen up the joints, add a little bit of a plyometric effect to it. And so you get the knees loose, you get the hips loose. But basically what it is you're just dropping into the squat and then bouncing out of that into that top position. And so pick 2, and then that's all you're going to need to go. Then the last one, this is just going to be 2 minutes, 2 ramp up sets. So I want you to think about, what is my main compound lift that I have coming up? And you're just going to do a mini version of that. So let's just say you have front or back squats. Just do a goblet squat, a moderate dumbbell, and you're just controlled tempo, full range of motion though, very much. If you're going to do a bench press, just do push-ups. And if you can do a deficit push-up where you're really getting into that shoulder extension, elbow flexion, that's going to be even better just to loosen that joint up. Barbell, dumbbell lunge, just do the body weight version of that. And then if you got rows or pull downs, very, very important here that you just kind of loosen up those shoulder blades and allow them to kind of glide along the rib cage. And so, doing some alternating bent over dumbbell rows, those would be great. So start to finish, you got 5 minutes on the cardio machine, 3 minutes, 2 exercises, full body dynamic warm up. And then you're thinking about what is my main movement for the day. And then you're just doing a mini version of that. And then you should be much more locked in, nice little sweat going, ready to attack that compound lift. Okay, so warm up is done. We got a nice little sweat going. Our muscles, our joints feel loose, ready to rock and roll. We're time to get in the meat and potatoes of this workout, so our strength work. And I can understand if you want to approach this with the mindset that you had over summer, over fall, where you're just attacking set after set after set, PR after PR. That's the goal, right? But if you've done this in the past, how did you feel going into springtime? Now, the reason I bring this up, I actually have done this in myself. And initially, I kept that momentum going. But as soon as the holidays started to hit and I kept chasing those metrics, I was burned out entering springtime. And when you think about spring and summer, that's where we want to shine. And so I look at winter as kind of this restoration phase where we are protecting movement quality over quantity. And so when we get into the meat and potatoes of this workout, really 2 things are super important. 1 is going to be strength maintenance, and then 2 is going to be flow. And so if flow is disrupted during the workout, it automatically kills it and our bodies start to cool down a little bit. It makes it harder to get back going again. And so there's 2 ways to do that. So we obviously want to keep a compound movement into our routine. So just because it's winter doesn't mean that we should only do super lightweight, functional type stuff. Like if you like squat, bench, and deadlift, keep that in your program. But it's just small tweaks to where you're protecting the quality of the movement instead of the quantity. And so how do you do that? Well, basically what you're going to do is the first heavy set. So we'll just use an example of 4 sets of 8. Okay. You just want to go 5 to 10 pounds lighter or 1 to 2 RPE lighter than your summer baseline. And so that just gives you a little bit of extra time for your muscles and joints to feel that stimulus, feel that load, get in the groove. And that way you can still attack those heavy sets. And so the goal here is to build up to 1 max set for every exercise. And so if you were doing 4 sets of 8, at whatever weight, and that was your max, what I want you to do is slowly build up to where that 4th set is all out. That way, you're not blowing your load on the 2nd set or the 3rd set, and then your 4th set is compromised. No, you're still getting good quality. And that 1 set alone is actually enough to maintain your strength progress, while also providing the benefit of the quality of the movement pattern. So your joints are feeling good, your muscles are feeling stimulated, and you're continuing that progress. And so if you are doing very heavy strength work, like let's just say anything 5 reps or less, then it is going to be important that you add a plyometric into your warm-up, because like we talked about, the nervous system, it just takes a little bit longer to kind of get going. So if you're going to do a bench press, do a plyometric push-up, or if you're going to do a squat, do a vertical jump, something like that, where it is max effort or max intent, I should say, to where that nervous system is firing on all cylinders. Because when you're getting into strength work is very much neurologically based instead of muscular based. So if our nervous system is primed and ready to go, it's going to allow us a little bit more bandwidth to really push those heavy weights. Okay. So flow now. How do we keep the flow going? We already went 10 minutes into the warm up. We're cooking. We hit that strength exercise. Now, how do we keep it going? So supersets, that's going to be the most important thing. And whether you're at home or in a commercial gym, it's going to look a little bit different, but you want to do a superset of opposing muscle groups. So either one push exercise, one pull exercise, or if you're going total body, just superset a lower body exercise with an upper. So a couple of examples of that are going to be really space efficient to where you're not going back and forth in the gym. If you work out a commercial gym, incline bench, incline row together, or pull up, push up together, or elevated dumbbell split squat or Bulgarian split squat and bench press together. So you're staying in the same space, but you're also keeping the flow of the workout going. So those are going to be two really important points to hold on to during the meat and potatoes of your workout, is that you should still include that compound heavier strength movement. But remember, you're prioritizing movement pattern quality instead of the quantity. And then also after that, for your accessory work, just add supersets in. And that's going to be efficient with your time. And you're also going to get a great workout from it. Okay, staying on the topic of prioritizing quality over quantity, I want to go into progressive overload and what that would look like in the wintertime versus summer and fall. And so in summer and fall, wait, where we're chasing PRs, chasing max weight. And that is by far the most potent stimulus of progressive overload, but it is not the only one. And so there are other forms of progressive overload. And if you don't know what that means, it essentially just means doing more than what you were doing last time. And that is really what creates progress. But if the goal over wintertime is to maintain strength and then also allow for some restoration and reset, that way we can enter spring feeling that bounce in our step, feeling strong and motivated, then we need to kind of shift how we think about progressive overload. And so in the wintertime, important things are going to be reps and speed. And so there's a couple different qualities that you should look for as you're going through the movements. One is going to be, do the reps feel smooth? Do they feel fluid? Now, I'm not saying you got to lighten up the load so much to where every single rep feels that way. You should still be lifting the weights at a proper stimulus to where they are challenging but doable. But I'm saying this would be a good internal audit system for you, is once you get done with a set, just kind of reflect how many of those reps felt a little bit sticky or compensating a little bit just to get through the set. Now, if it was the last 3 1 week, and then all of a sudden the next week, it's only the last one, well, that's progress. And that definitely means that your coordination is going up, your fluidness is going up, and that's a form of progression. Now, the second one's going to be full range of motion. And so full range of motion is obviously going to be great for a muscle stimulus, but it also acts as protecting your mobility in the joints. And that could also be another form of progression too. Let's just say on a squat, right? You're getting down maybe 4 inches above parallel. And then the next week, you're able to get 3 inches above parallel. And then the next week, 1 inch above parallel. And then the next week, at parallel. That increase in range of motion with the same exact load, 100%, that is a form of progress. And that means your muscles are doing more work. So that's going to be an important part. And the last one is going to be velocity. And so what I mean by velocity is the speed at which you're performing the reps. Now, this is another good internal audit system for you where, and specifically I'm talking about on the concentric part of that phase. And so what I mean by that is that, let's say on the last rep on week 1, it felt really slow, a little bit sticky. And let's say a week later, it feels a little bit less sticky. And then a week after that, not only does it feel less sticky, but it also feels faster on the way up. So even though you're doing the same exact weight, the fact that that speed on the way up for that last rep is increasing, that's also a sign that you're getting stronger. So to kind of summarize, rep quality, the fluidness, the smoothness of every single rep with still that stimulating load. Full range of motion. Are you getting deeper? Are you feeling that stretch a little bit more? So you're working the muscles in that lengthened position, which is great for hypertrophy. And then the velocity of the movement. That last rep, is it feeling faster? Is it feeling like it's flying a little bit more than last time? So the reason why these are important versus just focusing on max weight is because they are going to lay the foundation. They are going to extend the runway for massive gains in the springtime when you're ready to rock and roll. And so I will caveat that by saying one of the most effective feedback loop and feedback systems is to incorporate an AMRAP on your last set of an exercise. And the reason for that is because if all three of those qualities, rep quality, full range of motion, velocity, check, 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 and you do an AMRAP, and let's say you have a set of 8 and you get 14, okay, well, the load is way too light for you and you need to go up in weight. So that is where I would say prioritize going up in weight. But I'm talking about prioritize those 3 qualities. If you do an AMRAP and you're only able to get on a set of 8, you're only able to get 9. Very, very important here that you just focus on increasing the reps as you go along instead of the weight. And so if you have a set of 8, 1 week on an AMRAP, you're able to get 9. The next week, you're able to get 10. The next week, you're able to get 11. And then once you hit that 12 mark, then it's time to go up in weight and drop it back down to 8. So that's kind of how to think about progressive overload in the wintertime, where you're still prioritizing and holding sacred the quality of movement so the joints stay fresh, the muscles are ready to go, instead of just chasing PRs from a weight standpoint. Now, obviously, movement over muscle, push, pull, carry, rotate, crawl. These are all movement patterns that should be incorporated into the winter program over isolation exercises. And so by doing this, we keep the engine on the whole session. Fewer cold starts, but more continuous quality. That way we can show up session after session after session with good quality. And so to kind of give you some go-to KPIs to add into your toolkit that you can use as kind of internal audits, remember, velocity. Are you getting faster on that last rep versus the previous week? And second is the reps. Are you able to do more reps with the same load over the next 2 to 3 weeks? And then third, if you're incorporating cardio, zone 2, are you able to maintain a slightly faster pace at the same RPE, rate of perceived exertion level, over time? Those are all going to be great feedback systems, great internal audits to kind of keep in the back of your mind as you're going through winter. Now, I want you to think about, how the past couple of winters have gone for you. Were you able to adapt to your program and maintain 90% of your consistency despite the decreased motivation from the cold weather, the abnormal schedules with the holidays? Or did you default to start-stop cycles and let that season dictate your standards? What do you think would change if the goal was 0 missed weeks, not days, weeks, instead of chasing PRs? If we kind of zoom out and think about the accumulated volume over time, that's going to add up, and we're also going to feel great after doing it. And so consistency is always going to be your competitive advantage, and winter is where you hold on to it. So even if you're not able to stay perfect and hit 100% of your sessions, we're talking about 90% is still going to be far more beneficial than trying to have the best session of your life 100% of the time, and then you're going through these start-stop cycles. All right, to recap everything we talked about, it is inevitable. Cold weather is going to change our physiology. It is going to change our system. So instead of doing the same thing that we did over summer, over fall, where we're just chasing max weight, max weight, max weight, PR after PR, which could potentially lead to burnout, where we don't have anything left to give in the springtime to set ourselves up for a good summer next year. Now, instead, we could look at winter as more so of a restoration phase, where we're still tapping in to those high strength levels and we're still maintaining our strength. But the focus of the session and of the program is going to be on movement pattern quality instead of quantity. So for the warm-up, in order to elevate your warm-up, if there's one thing that you should focus on, just do something that's going to elevate your heart rate. What that does is it disperses the blood flow to those working tissues. And I promise you, blood flow alone is going to have a bigger impact in short-term mobility than just stretching on the floor in cold weather. And so if you don't want to think about it, you don't want to have to, know which dynamic mobility exercises you should do, and you just kind of want to be mindless about it, I get it. The best way to do the warm-up, just hop on a cardio piece for 10 minutes instead of 5. You just need to make sure that it's at enough moderate intensity to where you leave the 10 minutes having a little bit of a sweat going. That's important. And you're ready to rock and roll by set number 1. And then once you get into the strength work, instead of just focusing on increasing the weight week after week, progressive overload is going to look a little bit different. Reps and speed. So are you able to get more reps than you were 3 weeks ago with the same weight? And are you able to move the weight a little bit faster on the last rep than you were 2 to 3 weeks ago? If yes, boom, progress. You are still making progress in that. And that's just going to lay the foundation so you enter spring feeling amazing. So if you took anything away from this episode, if it helped cut the noise and helped you train smarter, it would mean a lot if you just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so we can continue growing the channel and that you also don't miss what's coming next. Now, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below because we read all of them and we also build these episodes on those real problems. Now, I know everything we talked about, it is going to take action on your part. And so if you'd rather just outsource that decision making so you can just show up and execute, like click the link below and we'll build an individualized plan for you that is tailored towards your specific needs. So other than that, it was great hanging with you and we'll talk soon. Take care.